Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. So much meing in one sentence used to be sung by vocalists warming up before a big performance, but now it has sort of become the de facto anthem of the United States. Speak your truth. I am triggered. My body, my choice. Underneath these popular slogans is a raging narcissism, packaged as courageous authenticity that is coarsening our moral, spiritual, intellectual, interpersonal, and political culture. How did we arrive at this cult of self, and are we better for it? I'm Julie Hartman. I am Julie Hartman, and this is Timeless. Hey everyone, welcome to Timeless. I hope that you're having a great week. Just a reminder to hit the subscribe button down below so that you can stay notified every time we post a Julie Noted news video or a Timeless episode. And also be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Julie R. Hartman. Yes, today is about the cult of self. You know, we often hear adults talking about the rampant narcissism of young people these days. And frankly, they're right. A lot of us have succumbed to a me centered world, but it's not just confined to young people in their teens or in their 20s or 30s. It appears that this cultural malaise has also come to infect adults and seniors. It's just something that Americans in general seemed to have subscribed to. So the question today is, what happened? Why has it come to be this way? And how are we seeing it manifest? Now, of course, anecdotally, many of us have been in conversations and we can observe that people nowadays tend not to ask very many questions of the other person. You don't often hear people really genuinely saying, "How are you? How's it going? How's your sister? How's your mom? How's your brother?" etc. So we observe this in a kind of anecdotal way, but also, as indicated in the introduction, this focus on the self, this narcissism has come to characterize many of the in vogue political movements today. So to structure this episode, we're first going to talk about the modern conception of the self, how people's understanding of themselves has changed over time to get us to this place right now where we are. Then we will move on to discuss the manifestations politically today, how, as I mentioned, a lot of the political issues that we see are rooted in this sense of my feelings, my proclivities, my preferences matter more than the general good, matter more than just about anything else. And then in the third part of this show, we will talk about, well, what should the self be understood as? It's not enough to just lament and criticize the modern perception of the self. It's important to offer an alternative, how we should view our own place in the world in a healthy way that not only makes us better people, but that makes society better too. So to start off with the modern conception of the self, on this program, we had Carl Trueman on the show. It was really fun to be able to interview him. He is the author of what Ben Shapiro calls one of the most important books of the 21st century. His book is called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self. So literally Carl Trueman's entire intellectual project is to try to understand this cult of self and this narcissism. He opens the book with this quote that he posits characterizes the state of the modern era. And that quote is, "I am a woman trapped in a man's body." We hear that a lot, obviously, as transgenderism, gender fluidity has become particularly popular. But Carl Trueman looks at that quote, "I am a woman trapped in a man's body," and he does a little bit of a historical thought experiment. Carl Trueman says 80 years ago, if you were to go into your doctor's office and tell your doctor, I am a woman trapped in a man's body, your doctor would respond by saying, okay, here we have a problem with your mind, and we need to work on getting your mind in accordance with your body. Fast forward to 2023, Carl Trueman says it is the exact opposite. If you go into a doctor's office today and say, I am a woman trapped in a man's body, the doctor will respond to you by saying, okay, this is a problem of your body, and we need to bring your body in accordance with your mind. It really is an apt kind of description or thought experiment for the way that the conception of the self has evolved. Trueman's point is that in the modern world, your feelings, your subjective experience matters more than anything else. Your feelings trump external reality. If you feel like a woman, it literally does not matter that you look down at your organs and you see something quite different from a female organ. If you feel it, that's what matters. And everyone else needs to be brought into accordance with your feeling. You need to take puberty blockers. You need to get a life-altering surgery to bring your body in accordance with your mind. And crucially, as we are seeing today, you need to demand that other people in their pronoun references to you subscribe to and adhere to your subjective feelings-based understanding of reality. So we're not just seeing, though, that this is about the body, that people are just using their feelings to alter their bodies. We're also seeing, as I'll get to in the second part of this episode, that people are using their feelings to try to change society around them. This is what we're seeing, for instance, as a little preview with student loan forgiveness. Well, I don't want to pay off my student loans. I don't think that it is fair that I had to take out this loan in order to go to college. So I am going to demand that I don't have to pay them, and the rest of society has to take up the slack that I don't want to incur. So we see that this feelings-based understanding of oneself literally enables people to trump or to subvert the external realities, the external truths and obligations that they may otherwise have to subscribe to. They think it is the truest expression of the real you to go along with your feelings versus, as I said, reality, truth, and obligations. Now, with regard to this transgender issue, I have met many people. Now, every time in this episode when I say I'm going to do it in this self-aggrandizing, haughty way. Can't get that out of my mind. But you know what? It's a good way to coach yourself to not say that one dotted vowel. I will give myself a pass for just a moment. When I was in college and in high school, it was typical to encounter people who were transgender. And in my dealings, I would be very respectful of those individuals who were transgender. I would even use the pronouns that they wanted to subscribe to. But as a matter of public policy, this feelings-based way is just not viable to run a society off of. That is the important distinction. With everyday people, you can and should be respectful, but as a matter of organizing your civilization, it is literally just not plausible to ignore realities and truths and obligations. So we know that we are at this place now, this feelings-based perception of the self. How did it get there? That is the eternal question. When and how did it all evolve to be this way? There are a few hypotheses that may benefit from being explained. The first is the role that thinkers over time have played in this modern conception of the self. I encourage you all to check out a recent episode of Timeless with Spencer Clavin. We discuss Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who was a thinker in the 18th century in Geneva. And Spencer and I discuss that this idea that racism causes obesity and climate change causes mental health disorders and poverty causes crime. We may think of that as a modern, recent spin on liberal ideas, but actually the intellectual seeds for that line of thought were planted way back in the 18th century. That is true of Rousseau, and that is true of a lot of other figures who popularized this feelings-based understanding of oneself. Let's start with Rousseau, giving you a little bit of a synopsis of what was discussed with Spencer. Jean-Jacques Rousseau talked about how human beings are born perfect in the state of nature. Christianity holds that there's original sin. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, no, there wasn't original sin. There was original perfection. And what happened was society corrupted individuals away from that perfection into the destitute state that we're in now. In Rousseau's first discourses, in which he explains his view of societal malaise, he literally argues that all of these external factors produce malignant character traits in human beings. He talks about how trees are really high and how it was difficult for early hunter-gatherers to be able to climb trees and get berries and other kinds of plants for sustenance. And Rousseau says, because trees were so high and difficult to climb, we needed to start asking each other for help. And once we started asking each other for help, then division of labor came as a result, because some people climb trees, some people hoist the people who climb trees, some people take the products from the trees and make them into meals. And Rousseau says once this division of labor was brought into place, then society went downhill from there, because we started to see one another as fundamentally unequal in our abilities and thus our worth. I mean, it's a crazy idea. It's literally crazy, but it shows, as aforementioned, that the early intellectual seeds of this, I am perfect, my feelings are perfect, everything else is just pushing me to wrong, were actually there centuries and centuries before this modern moment. So that's Rousseau. You're perfect, your feelings are perfect, society corrupts you. Let's go to Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is a 19th century Austrian thinker, and he popularized this idea that the real you, the truest form of yourself, is your sexual impulses. It's the way that literally your parents wiped your derriere as a child. It's the way that you were breastfed. You developed all of these impulses that you were not even aware that you developed. Penis envy, depending on how you were nursed, you became a hard, kind of determined individual or a soft one. He basically says the real you is a result of these instincts. So what does that do? That places outsized importance on your instincts, not the fact that you can control your instincts or that you have to adhere to other societal rules or norms and mitigate your impulses. But no, Freud is saying the real you is that you are a bundle of these impulses, and everything you do is just a result of that. Again, feelings-based understanding of the modern self. And the final thinker, although there are many to cite here, is Friedrich Nietzsche, another subject of a Thinker of the Month episode with Spencer Clavin that you should all check out. Friedrich Nietzsche was this German thinker also in the 19th century, and he talked about how society has become defective. God is dead, Nietzsche said, and we have killed him. In other words, Judeo-Christian values and norms are dead as a result of human beings. And basically Nietzsche's argument is, well, these norms are dead. So the way that human beings are to triumph in this new world, is to make rules for themselves. He talks about the will to power, the will to truth. You concoct your own power, you concoct your own truth. And the people who do this in the best way, what Nietzsche calls the Übermensch, those are the strong men, will succeed, and the people who don't enact their own will in a powerful way will fail. So again, focus on the will, focus on yourself and what you can make yourself to be, not adhering to tried and true traditions and elements of morality around you. So that's one component, the influence of thinkers on the perception of the self. Another hypothesis for this feelings-based understanding of oneself, in my view, has to do with the role of religion. Religion, in my view, overall has been a powerful influence for good in our society. As Dennis Prager says, all of the evil that religion did was widespread, but all of the good that specifically Judeo-Christian religion has done has been unique. And that is true. Nevertheless, however, it is important to acknowledge that despite its great achievements and great utility and value, religion has sometimes gotten it wrong. For instance, the Christian church, for a lot of the history of the United States, focused very much on rules and procedures over greater messages of self-control and how to interact properly, morally properly in a society. For instance, and this is said as a Catholic, the Catholic Church focused in the 20th century very much on these like nitpicky details, whether a child that is in the womb, not yet to be born, is that child in purgatory or is that child in limbo? Are you able, as a Catholic, to receive communion if you ate an hour before the communion? Are you a sinner if you decide to eat fish on Fridays? That's contrary to the doctrine that you shouldn't eat fish on Fridays. It was so excessively focused on procedure. And then in the 1960s, when there was this big sexual liberal revolution, the church became focused on finger wagging, but in a more liberal way as opposed to a more conservative way. Now it is not uncommon to walk by churches and see big pride banners outside of the church or big BLM banners. So the church has changed its tune from maybe not talking anymore about no fish on Fridays and no eating before communion, but now it's talked about social justice issues. There's this part of the New Testament where a woman is accused of committing adultery and she is condemned to be stoned. And Jesus comes in and Jesus says that it is not right for the woman to be stoned. But nevertheless, Jesus addresses the woman directly and he says to her, "Go forth and sin no more." That line, "Go forth and sin no more," would be judged as too harsh, too moralistic for churches to say. And again, it reflects this idea that you can't tell other people how to feel. It's their feelings. Adultery is their truth. It is maybe a woman's real, authentic expression of sexuality. So it's interesting to see over time how the church has been finger wagging for quite some time, but now it's finger wagging in a different way that is encouraging people not to talk about certain moral codes and objective truths that people have to subscribe to, but it's wagging the finger and saying you have to respect people's truth, their authenticity, and that is the mark of a true Christian to respect those things. So we have the role of the thinkers, we have the role of Christianity, which has done immense good, but has in some ways really failed on this issue of encouraging a healthy, rules, objective-based understanding of the self. And then finally, the role of technology cannot be ignored. Yes, people understand their feelings to triumph over anything else, but also technology kind of encourages and legitimizes that line of thought. Now, no matter how many times you say that you're a man, if you are born a woman, you can't become a man. But in 2023, you can get awfully close. I mean, people can take puberty blockers. They can start looking like men. They can, in their voice, start sounding like men. You can get, your organs chopped off. And there are even talks nowadays of people being able to have surgical implants of uteruses to hold a child. So we are living in a technological world where things have become so advanced that it actually may be possible for you to change reality in your image. Another example is AI. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal recently about AI babysitters. If you don't want to raise your kid, if you want to go out for a night, if you don't want to sing your kid a bedtime story, the robot can do it for you. It's like waving a magic wand and changing your outside reality. If you don't want to go to work, nowadays we have this work from home push where you can get in your PJs, put on a sweatshirt, and log into your job on Zoom. Literally countless examples. Uber Eats, if you don't want to go out and get food, you can just click a button and have the food go to your doorstep. We can literally change reality to reflect our feelings and preferences. Not to mention that we have social media, which has obviously gained a lot of prominence since it was established about a decade ago. And think about the way that orients people's mind. It orients people's mind in a very my feelings, my truth way. You have a profile, which is the entirety of you, your public projection to the world, and you can change your photos, your face. You can literally change your face, the color of your eyes, the amount of cellulite you have to change reality to reflect what you want it to be. So that is a analysis of the modern conception of the self. Let's move on to how this manifests today. Before we go there, I would like to tell you quickly about MyPillow. I use so many MyPillow products and would not advertise them if they weren't fabulous. I wear my slippers, go home, sleep on my pillow and Giza Dream bed sheets, use my towels, and you can now too, using the promo code Hartman, which is my last name, Hartman. For a limited time, you will get 60% off of the Giza Dream sheets. That comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. You will receive a set for as low as $39.99. And for a limited time, with any purchase, you'll get Mike Lindell's soft cover book free with the promo code Hartman. Just go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use the promo code Hartman, or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman. Manifestations today, and manifestations is not said as the very earthy, feely manifest a good job outcome. Manifestations as clearly outcomes of this narcissism that we're seeing. So many of the in vogue political doctrines or pushes today reflect this sense of self. And on the surface, many of these policies are said to reflect tolerance and equity, but really beneath that is this cult of self, where people think my emotions, my feelings, what I want matter more than the collective good. Let's talk about abortion first, which is a very controversial, obviously emotional issue. Both sides of this argument have very legit points for arguing what they do. We are going today talk about the anger surrounding the way pro-choice people view pro-life people. It is not my intention to take a position on pro-choice or pro-life. Again, we are just talking about why is there so much anger against pro-life people. Even if you totally disagree with pro-life people, these individuals are advocating for a very noble thing, which is protecting a life. Protecting a voiceless and defenseless fetus that has not yet come to term and be able to advocate for themselves. Despite this noble viewpoint, which any rational individual could in good faith disagree with. There's so much vitriol funneled at pro-life people. Let's listen to a clip which conveys this. This clip has compilations of people at protests. It also includes a professor disrupting a pro-life desk at a college, and then finally a woman on a street screaming expletives and knocking over a display of a pro-life advocate.
My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice! Yeah! It's abortion rights! Now! Abortion rights! Now!
You're not educated. This is propaganda. What are you gonna do? Like anti-trans next? Is that what you're gonna do next?
I mean, no, we're talking about abortion.
This is violent. You're triggering my students.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, you're not. Because
I'm
you can't
sorry,
even have a baby. So you don't even know what that is. You don't even know what this is. Get the out of here, yo.
Unbelievable.
You're just a white privileged racist male that doesn't stand for women's rights. You don't give a shit about women. You don't give a shit about life. All you are just a bunch of.
Okay, again, the point here is about the anger. There is clearly a deep-seated outrage that goes beyond just rational disagreement that is being levied at pro-life people. Again, it goes back to this sense of self. How dare you pro-life people tell me that I have to do something that I don't want to do? How dare you tell me that there are consequences for having sex? How dare you tell me that I may have an obligation, not just to myself, but to my unborn child? And not just to myself and my unborn child, but to the potential co-parent. How dare you tell me that there are certain eternal religious truths about the value and dignity of human life that I ought to consider to subscribe to in addition to my own wishes? There is this sense of, oh, I get to do whatever I want. And these people who are telling me that no, there are other standards that I have to abide by are so evil. That is the reason for the intense vitriol. Let's go on to the transgender issue. Again, let's play a quick clip. This is a video of a transgender individual and a transgender activist flipping a Turning Point USA table at a college.
Yeah, no, you just support the genocide of trans kids and you want everyone is born to die? Yeah, no, you do.
That is such an assumption.
It's such an assumption, right, with all of this right.
What is anti-trans on the table?
Your TPUSA, you dumb whatever. My campus,
Hey, that's
not.
That's illegal?
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
That's assault, actually.
Hey, Rachel, can you call campus security?
Yeah, I will actually. Hey, I have it on camera.
Here's another clip of outsized anger. This is a trans activist screaming for a minute straight at a San Francisco congressional meeting.
I am going to spend the next minute screaming, because that is what is going on in here. That is what the trans genocide in this country, in this city, has brought me to.
I get to see myself represented on that flagpole just as much as the people who got the Juneteenth flag last month, as much as the POW MIAs will get later this month. Every single person is entitled to see themselves represented. But we're here, we're queer, and we're not going away.
Every person is entitled to see themselves represented. It tells you all you need to know about the cult of self. So that action itself in the video reflects this narcissism, but really, again, the transgender issue itself reflects a cult of self. My feelings trump whatever body part I have. My my wishes of how other people refer to me should trump their perception of who I am and of reality. And you are a racist, or not racist, but transphobic, that's the word, transphobic, evil bigot if you do not adhere to what I want, and you are a transphobic evil bigot if you do not teach young children in schools that their gender is fluid. That is what we are seeing nowadays. In LAUSD, we're filming here in Los Angeles. LAUSD is the school district that encompasses 450 schools in LA. They have these rainbow club meetings for students as young as 4 years old, and they are subjected to drag queen story hours. If you look at the Arizona, New Jersey, Oregon Department of Educations, they have all of these diktats to teach young people as young as 10 years old that they may not be the gender that they were born into. This is not just a fringe movement. This is incredibly mainstream. And it is proselytizing. It is literally taking someone and saying, I want you to be this idea of what I think is the truth, what I think is a better society. What a raging narcissism to think that your understanding of life is more enlightened than everyone else's, and everyone else ought to march in lockstep alongside you, because otherwise they are just these awful people. Okay. Student loan forgiveness, aforementioned. This idea, and look, many of us can have sympathy for people who are in the place of maybe needing to decide to have an abortion, for people who are having gender dysphoria, of people who took out student loans and are financially struggling to be able to repay those debts. Of course. We all have sympathy for those people in those positions, but it's about how you orient a society. And it is just not feasible to do, as the Biden administration is suggesting, massive student loan forgiveness. Student loan forgiveness is a misnomer. There's no such thing as forgiving money, as making money disappear. Really what it is a student loan transference. It's making taxpayers have to bear the burden of the loan that you took out, because in order for the Biden administration to forgive the people who took out loans, they're going to need to increase taxes. So functionally, everyday people are paying the loans instead of the person who took out the loan. That reflects a element, maybe not entirely, but an element of narcissism. I don't want to have to repay my debts. I don't think that it's fair, so I want everyone else to do it. Immigration, again, an issue that we can have sympathy for with people who want to come into this country. But there's this sense that, well, people ought to just be able to funnel across the border if that is what they want. Feelings and desires matter more than abiding by the law. Another great example, sadly, this crime spree that we're seeing here in Los Angeles County. Over the past few weeks, we've seen people in Torrance, in downtown LA, literally ransack Nordstrom's and other department stores because it's this, I want to steal, I want that top, so I should be able to get it. This whole defund the police and de-incarcerate people from prisons. I don't want to be surveilled by police. I don't want to have to pay the consequences for breaking the law. So everyone else should have to go along with what I want or don't want. And then finally, just as a kind of cultural thing, not so much a political phenomena, you even see this narcissism with the way that people dress. It is not uncommon to walk down the street and see people wearing super, super, super short shorts, letting their cellulite out into the sunlight. People wearing crop tops with their tattoos showing or their belly button piercings showing. And back in the day, people understood that as much as they may want to wear certain items of clothing, they dressed well for the benefit of other people, for the benefit of their civilization, to impart a certain dignity and organization to the society that they lived in. Now, if it is in accordance with what you desire that day, your truth, you should be able to accost everyday people with your cellulite if you so choose. Even what I just said, your truth. Think about that statement, your truth. There is no such thing as your truth or my truth. There is your opinion and my opinion, your experience and my experience, but there is one unchanging eternal standard, the truth. You can't make it yours or mine. It's just existing outside of your own feelings. There's also an enormous double standard here where people want to live their truths, but they also want to tell people what their own truth should be, as in the other person's truth. They want to make the rules not just for themselves, but for other people. We see this here with masks, mask mandates, and vaccine mandates. They don't care that it may be someone else's truth to not wear a mask or to not get a vaccine. It is the person in charge's truth, so they want to push it onto other people. So really, this narcissism is not about just letting people do what they want in their truth. It's about an elect few who decide what their feelings are, what their positions are, and then forcing them upon other people. Another example of this is these January 6ers in prison. You know, we see on the one hand that there's this argument that people ought to just be able to commit crime, loot the looters, and not go to prison for certain crimes because we're in this carceral state. But that doesn't apply to those who breached the Capitol on January 6th. Those people should be punished with the carceral state, but other people shouldn't be. So it shows that a lot of this cult of self is politically directed, not just feelings for the sake of feelings. So finally, in the third part of this episode, let's offer an alternative. We know that the understanding of the self is warped, and it is making people narcissistic, political, spiritual, intellectual, moral machines. How should one consider themselves? The interesting thing is that the more that you consider yourself as far as your obligations to other people and to your society, the more that you actually become more of yourself. In other words, if you take the self out of yourself and focus on doing the right thing for others, you really do become a better and your most potential-filled version of you. Ben Shapiro has an amazing commentary on this subject, the importance of rules and boundaries in directing your healthy fulfillment of who you are. Let's listen to him briefly.
The way to live a durable life and the things that are important is to embed yourself in these structures that are durable and good and positive. You're going to live a happier life. And I think we're leading an unhappier life because we have decided that what we really are in the end is my subjective sense of authenticity. What I am is what I want. My desires are me. Your desires are not you. What you are is your action in the world, particularly with regard to people that you care about and others. That is how you interact with the world. The best example that I use about this is, you know, if you want to know what people think of their lives, when they sum up their lives, and what makes people fulfilled, all you have to do is go to a cemetery. Go to a cemetery and read the tombstones. If you go to a cemetery and you read the tombstones, they all say the same stuff. They don't say, was transgender. They don't say, engaged in this many sexual activities. They do not say.
Not yet. They might soon, though.
I don't think they ever will. I think that every one of them is going to say, beloved husband, beloved father, beloved mother, beloved wife, beloved sister. Right? It is roles that you play in the world that are good because we were built for those roles.
Yes. Human beings need structures. We need boundaries. We need obligations. We need realities to be able to adhere to. I mean, it literally is what makes society function. You have to be able to agree as a society that 1 apple plus 1 apple equals 2 apples, and that for 2 apples you are going to charge $1.50. You have to establish certain norms that all of us buy into. That is true with money, that is true with counting, and that's also true with morality. We need these boundaries. G.K. Chesterton, in his fabulous book, Orthodoxy, has a great analogy or kind of parable to illustrate this point. He says, imagine an island that is really like up high on a mountain. So it's this big, massive structure that's very high above land, and it is this circular island. He says, if you put kids on that island and you put a big wall around the boundaries of that circular raised up island, children will have a great time. They will play, they will run to the edges of that island, they'll go near the wall, they'll kick a soccer ball, they'll do cartwheels, because they will know that they're safe. They will know the boundaries of their playing and that they're not going to go fall over the cliff if they go to chase their soccer ball. In other words, boundaries make you better, make you happier, allow you to fully express you. He says, imagine if that island had no walls. Children wouldn't play. They would huddle in the center of the island like scaredy cats because they would be paralyzed. They wouldn't know what to do. That is the same with rules. When you take away consequences for committing crimes, when you take away the understandings of gender, when you take away objective standards of right and wrong, it actually doesn't liberate people the way that many live your truth proponents say. It actually makes you into a scared shell of a human being. As Ben Shapiro so aptly said, you become you when you service other people. It doesn't mean that you do unabashed service just for others, but you really understand who you are when you fit into these roles. Because really, we all need a sense of purpose. We all need to know why we're waking up in the morning, what we are endeavoring to do and be like in 5 to 10 years. When you strip that away, everyone is worse off. When you exercise self-control and follow established boundaries, you get more self-esteem, you feel happier, and you feel better, and everyone is better off. I hope that you enjoyed this episode today, and thank you so much for listening. As always, you can email me at julie@julie-hartman.com. Hit the subscribe button down below if you want to see more clips, and I'll see you soon. Take care.